primary ignition.
This is Star Wars.
Look out!
Core World News.
You may fire when ready.
From the bright center of the galaxy, I'm Grex Kondak, and you're listening to Core World News, your whole-net news service providing in-depth coverage of the latest stories from every sector of the galaxy. Now for your news segment rundown for February 26, 2023. 99 problems, but a Bad Batch ain't one. We now go live to the CW newsroom to join your hosts for the review of Bad Batch Episode 10, The Retrieval.
All right, thank you very much, Grex. Welcome, everyone, to another edition of Core World News. We're so happy to have you here, whether you're watching us live on YouTube right now on a Sunday night, or if you're just listening to the podcast. It's great to be talking about Star Wars, and we've got an exciting week coming up. We will be talking about Bad Batch, which is coming out every week. But first and foremost, Mandalorian comes out this week, so we wanted to give our, final thoughts before this thing kicks off. Gentlemen, hello. Good to see you.
See you guys the way.
You guys pumped for Mando season 3 here, or?
I am ready to be cleansed in the waters beneath Mandalore. I've been waiting for this show. I feel like Filoni and Favreau have just carried forward the torch of George Lucas in such a brilliant way in this series that I think this is the only sort of media within Star Wars where we can get the George Lucas feel, and it's back in Mando, and I can't wait, guys. I'm super excited.
Yeah, I'm similar, but a weird thing was if you had asked me like 2 weeks ago, I'd be like, whatever, it's fine. I'm sure I'll enjoy it. And which felt like a weird reaction to me because I've only loved the Mandalorian. Like I've never had a bad feeling about it, but for some reason I think it's because it's been so long. There's been so many other things. I also, from a side note, as a human, as I'm getting older, I think I realized I manage my expectations by pretending I don't care about something until it's right around the corner, and then boy, do I really care about it when it's like 3 days away. So I went from like not caring to I cannot wait for anything more.
Yeah, I keep my apprehension in check. It's not here till it's here, and then like last week it was like there was something posted on StarWars.com. It's like Mandalorian 1 week away or 8 days, and I was like, oh, it just snuck up on me because there was a lot of release dates kicking around in March in my old noodle, but this is definitely the highlight of the month. Yeah, and now that Jedi Survivor got pushed, and yeah, I'm so excited about it. I just want the whole season. I just want to like eat the whole season. Is that wrong? Like, the first episode will probably be like 47 minutes if we're lucky. Yeah,
if we're lucky.
But I don't know.
I feel like the first couple seasons of Mando were just this jumping off point for what's going to be this larger sort of mythic journey, which is like, I guess, restoring Mandalore and the Mandalorian way and sort of what that means. I feel like that's going to be huge going forward. And I can't wait to see like what role the Armorer plays, what Mandalore looks like at this point. It looks like we're going there. Like that's, to me, the most exciting thing about this season is the journey.
Where are all those other Mandalorians coming from? Are they from Mandalore? Or is this just like a ragtag group that have been just kicking around on that planet that are, the few survivors? Who are they? That's definitely going to be stoked. Sabine Wren, is she going to be in this? There's been a lot of...
could that be a huge surprise in this season? Is that the intro of Sabine possibly?
We know she's cast.
Yeah. Well, and she's definitely cast, and that's something else that's happened. I feel like season 2 was... we joked about it when it was happening, but season 2, every episode was a backdoor pilot to another show, which kind of actually happened, right? Because we have Boba Fett, we now have Ahsoka Tano coming. We were going to have Rangers of the Old Republic. That's not happening, but I think we're going to get probably something spinning out of that. And then we have Skeleton Crew, which didn't directly spin out of anything, but I think what we saw in season 2 is this introduction to this larger Mandoverse. And so not only is this like this season setting up kind of what we're going to see for the rest of Mando, I think we're also just starting to see the larger world that he's inhabiting.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And also just to see the factions of the Mandalorians, and much like Palpatine sort of corrupted the history of the galaxy Maul corrupted the history of the Mandos. We have the Death Watch and this sort of like stringent creed, and then we have, I think, the new Mandalorians, which is sort of like Bo-Katan and her gang, which are like, we don't follow any sort of creed, or I guess they're the old school original Mandalorians when you think about it, but it feels like they're just the freedom fighters, the sort of like the less dogmatic sect crew. I really like Bo-Katan in that crew. I hope Din does like choose to side with Bo at the end of the day.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about the various ideologies of Mandalore coming to fore. I assume that Din Djarin's going to be successful in re-achieving his Mandalorian status, and if that opens the door for the Armorer to tell a little bit about her story, I know, like, I'm pretty sure she's a Mandalorian. She's got the horns, so
that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, and we know their sect is Death Watch, which was taken over by Maul and was ultimately the downfall of peaceful Mandalore. So I think, if we get Din Djarin with the Darksaber as a Mandalorian again, he's got to figure out an ideology to follow here. So I wonder what that's going to be.
Or create his own, or unite the clans, right? Like, I don't know, but I feel like the whole thing is, I mean, the one of the previews for this started with kind of, the Armorer telling him you're a Mandalorian no more, right? No longer. And I don't think, like, I can't imagine the season's going to go with him going to Mandalore, cleansing himself in the waters, and then she accepting him back, and then everything's good, right? Like, it's the dramatic beat has to be him rejecting her statement. Like, you don't decide whether or not I'm a Mandalorian. I wonder if part of the statement's going to be, I can only imagine that you're no longer a Mandalorian, and he just says, no, I am the Mandalore.
Yeah. Look at me.
Right? Like, I wonder if he claims the title, right? I wonder if that happens.
That'd be wild, man.
I would love that. I would love for him to go down to like the caves of Mandalore and like, ride a mythosaur out and then use the Force and be like, Tarvizsla who?
Yeah.
Din Djarin. Yeah. My name's Din Djarin.
I know, and that would be really the story that almost was in Rise of Skywalker, right? It's like, it doesn't need to be another Vizsla, just because, the original Mandalore was. Like, it can be just a random foundling, and that's a cool story.
It is, yeah. So I have a question, or I want to get your guys' thoughts, is that, like, so the previews are really, really, really focused on the Mandalorian plot, right? The plot of Mandalore, and we get a couple of some glimpses, but I feel like these previews are always really good at misdirecting, right? Like, look over here while really this is also happening over here. And I think this that's up happening over here that we're not really paying too much attention to is, like, what's Grogu's story this season? Right? I'm
excited we're getting to Grogu now, because I think I'm most excited to see the continuation of that archetype. And I don't think we ever get more story in the future with Grogu. Grogu kind of, for me, lives as this archetype of this child who can just use the Force. Mm-hmm. To me, that's endlessly fascinating in terms of like what you can do in scene work with that. When Grogu uses the Force, why he uses the Force. That stuff is so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So I think just as an inherent archetype, the child, the Grogu character is endlessly interesting to me.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
And they can create a new archetype for what a Force user is. It doesn't have to be wearing robes, flipping around with a lightsaber. He can just be using the Force in different ways. Though,
I mean, I don't put it past Grogu to flip around at this point.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the only things he learned, right, while he was with Luke. But he has leveled up here just by hanging out with Luke for a while. And, maybe he's
I can't believe you just said that sentence, but all right.
I mean, did it not happen?
That happened. That actually
No, it's 100%.
That actually happened, yeah. He just, like, leveled up and, like, he's back. And now he's like, this is great. This is good stuff.
That's like number two. Ask me if I could have any master in Star Wars. It would probably be, like, Luke just after Return of the Jedi.
You'd be in for wild times, man, because he was just like hustling, he was just faking it till he made it at that point. But I mean, you get to go to all these wild places, and
it's true. But I liked Luke quite a bit. That the little bit we saw Master Luke in Book of Boba Fett, I really enjoyed that version of him, to see that there was a moment where he was a sage teacher.
That's
right?
the Luke that I've always, as a kid growing up, like wanted to see. I wanted to see a bunch of like, okay, Luke's a Jedi. That's awesome. But, we got it in Return of the Jedi for a hot minute, and it was super fun. But yeah, I mean, actually, that was a pretty astounding Luke series of events.
It was.
As a Jedi.
Yeah. But then we had to wait 35 years for another movie. So we kind of missed out. Hopefully we'll maybe fill in some of those gaps.
But it should be fun. Another thing with the old Force Reno, we've got leveled up Grogu, but we have the problem of the Darksaber that the man, Din Djarin doesn't really know how to use it yet. There's a lot of chatter online that on the Reddits is actually my preferred social media poison. And that Sabine Wren could actually come into the fold and teach Din Djarin how to wield the Darksaber, which would be poetic in a lot of ways.
I mean, that makes a ton of sense. I mean, it'd be I don't know how to say this. I don't want to say it's because I'm going to say it, and then I just made a hair movie. It'd be weird if she didn't. Whatever. I'm not a story writer. You prove me wrong happily. But like, it'd be odd, at least, that we know she's in this universe, right? We know she's in the Mandoverse. We know from Clone Wars that she, had spent quite a bit of time with the Darksaber, and that's a big part of her storyline. And that not to transfer into this would be odd, I would think.
So in case you're not a Rebels watcher, there's a time there.
First of all, be a Rebels watcher.
Don't miss out on this, because if this next paragraph I'm about to say doesn't hook you, then I don't know what will. So Sabine Wren goes with Ezra to Dathomir to recover some relic. I forget even why he was there. It was something about Maul, to do with Maul. And then she stumbles upon the Darksaber in Darth Maul's lair on Dathomir. And then Kanan Jarrus teaches her how to use it. And it's a really cool series of like, you need to get your own force, your own humanity in tune with the Kyber crystal that lights a lightsaber. And so it's a really great series there. And so it would be great to see that flip on its head and have Sabine pass that knowledge down to Din Djarin, or not. And then it opens up the door for a really amazing conversation between Sabine Wren and Bo-Katan if they get in a room together, because also from Rebels, Sabine Wren just gives up the Darksaber to Bo-Katan, and as was prophesized, brought the downfall of Mandalore. Yeah, I mean, it looked like when she did it, it was like, oh, okay, she's just like, I don't want power, take power, go. But like the rule is you got to fight for it. And Bo-Katan didn't do that. And Sabine Wren at that point was a stronger Mandalorian. So anyways, that could be a lot of fun stuff there if Sabine Wren gets in the fold. And I sort of imagine Grogu watching this training. And maybe it falls out of Din Djarin's hand and Grogu picks it up and they're all like, whoa. And he's just like, whipping it around like it's a straw. And he's like, oh, cool.
Grogu with Darksaber.
Yeah, because he's like instantly in tune with it. And like, I don't know.
So is Grogu the Mandalore?
If you keep saying it, you're going to will it into being, I think. I don't know. There he is. He's going to get a helmet, and then he's going to have the Darksaber.
Is Bo-Katan sitting on a throne at one point in the trailer?
Yes, yeah. On her her own throne. Yeah. I forget what clan she is, but
where's that?
On a slagged Mandalore. I think it's her seat, of her family, and she's all that's left. Yeah, I haven't seen it in a minute. I feel bad that I don't know clan names right now. I mean, it's probably Clan Catan. I don't know.
Clan Catan should be the name of our segment.
Yeah.
Or we think.
Yeah. Clan Catan. Well, there's still time. Yeah.
There
any
is.
other?
We'll have Clan Catan corner, which will happen at the end of the show.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other tidbits that you're looking forward to in this show, or are you just going to let it happen?
I mean, Grief Karga's drip was pretty incredible. Just
Yeah.
Just gonna throw that down.
Carl Weathers keeps leveling
Yeah,
up
look at
himself
Yeah.
with his drip.
Just upgraded.
I'm looking forward to catching up with him. He's always a favorite. He always comes in and does a good job. I think we're gonna get Grogu's first words this season.
Okay, which are?
I don't think they're
Jaren.
good. I don't know. Jaren, yeah. I don't know, right? Like it's so tough. It's
Daddy.
I don't know.
Yoda.
It's probably Yoda. Oh, that'd be amazing. Yeah. Jedi. No, I don't know.
Yeah.
Something.
You'll see a hologram of Yoda. They'll do the Rian Johnson.
Do you think we get a Thrawn in this, or do you think they're saving that fully for Ahsoka?
I don't know. They may want to tease it. We do know that I don't know if it was this week that it came out that Jon Favreau, in anticipation of a writer's strike next year, has finished writing season 4.
Yeah.
So, and then in a brief interview, he was talking about, then trying to have an event where it pulls things together, which makes me uneasy. But those events can be fun, but they can be forced.
See, I almost think Mando and Grogu need to remain drifters at the end of all.
Oh, yeah.
This.
Yeah.
That's almost where I'm gonna steadfast think. That's where I think it needs to go.
Yeah,
I don't know if he
you,
can be Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I think he has to be a drifter, and Grogu and him have to just lone wolf and cub through the galaxy till the end of their days.
I mean, maybe they do an inversion of the story, right? And the refusal of the call is actually his apotheosis, right at the very end, like him, him claiming it and then throwing it away, realizing that he had to choose Grogu over Mandalore.
Like I've had anxiety over this helmet for far too long.
Yeah.
I
mean, that could be wild. That'd be really good. I think it's more likely we get Boba Fett, his little seat of power gets nuked and he gets launched off as a drifter. But it's not that sort of wolf and cub story that we love with Din Djarin and Grogu. So, yeah.
I mean, no, but it'd be interesting if they become adversaries at some point, right? They're both drifters, but adversaries. Like it's just think about old EU where like every 5th book, Boba Fett would just pop up again to mess with Han Solo.
I do have to say, it's also nice if maybe he does confront Thrawn at some point, and Thrawn does use the context of, like the original Mandalore used the Force, but like you use this child. Like, what's different from how we use our, Wayfinders or however they use Force sensitives in the Chiss Ascendancy? Like, how is it different from what he's doing? Like, other religions and cultures have like abused Force sensitive people and used them in malicious ways to have their gains, whereas the Jedi were sort of like wonderful peaceful order of Force sensitives, and it's kind of a different whole like milieu and atmosphere. And I feel like I could see Thrawn, some fun dialogue being thrown against Mando and Grogu and sort of what that situation is. Like, who better to comment on that situation? Honestly.
Yeah. That would be wild if we got Thrawn in this one.
Because like he's probably thinking about the Mandalore. He thinks about the history and the past and culture.
Yes, and he's studied Mandalorians, right? Mandalorian culture.
Yeah, he's probably studied it.
I mean, so we know Thrawn learns about cultures through art. I'm trying to think if in Rebels he ever really scrutinized the Mandalorians. I don't think he did, but he probably. I mean, he can.
And if anyone is ever going to reveal anything about the Yoda species, it should probably be Thrawn.
Yeah.
That's about it. It's I can't think of another way to even do that. Like about Grogu or anything.
Yeah. He's like, these things are all over the trees on this one planet. They're everywhere.
He's like, I've been on a world of
they're like
things.
bunnies.
They're all Force sensitive.
Right?
Their M counts are off the charts.
The M counts. Oh boy. So remember, but the other thing that Favreau mentioned in some interview, I think it was the same interview I mentioned he'd already finished writing season 4, is that he doesn't have an end in sight.
Yes. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, I did catch that.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah. Thoughts? Is it?
Drifters.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. They could just have serialized adventures forever.
I kind of like it, right? Like, because I feel like sometimes, I mean, you don't want to get, you don't want to experience the lost syndrome,
Yeah.
right? Where it's just like you introduce all these things. But I think the show is so great at that it didn't introduce. There's not a lot of mystery boxes opened in the Mandalorian. It is very.
We also have
fairly,
a major.
you know,
We have major Jedi
straightforward.
stories ahead of us too, with like Ezra, Ahsoka.
Yeah, that you can kind of exactly. You can tell some of these other stories. Like I think every time they open a mystery box in this show, the mystery box is taking a place to see, is in another show, right?
Yeah. I feel like that's definitely going to be. They're going to have fun exploring all of that. I think they did say that Skeleton Crew is not connected, or like maybe look for maybe one character crossover, but it's not super connected to the Mandoverse. So that was interesting. But I can't wait to just see Ahsoka and see what that story is, and see what Filoni's doing there, and see what I hope Filoni. I mean, Ahsoka is something that maybe could continue for a few seasons, right? Like if people just really love it, I feel like
Yeah.
a fun show to see carry on.
I hope it keeps going and going forever. That's what we talked about in way back when it started. It's just like this could go for a very, very long time. Plus, it's like they can always just use stunt people and to fill in for the Pablo whenever he's busy doing any of his other major IPs.
Right. When he's in some other blockbuster TV show. But no, it's true. They could very much treat it as a voiceover role, right? Like just he does it in the booth if they really need to get creative.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty sweet, man.
Anyways, can't wait for Mandoverse to continue. All those shows. Super excited. Definitely Grogu highlight, Bo-Katan, Mando, Darksaber, all that lore.
Yeah. I'm not sure when we will do that podcast yet, what night, but now that we're doing these live events, and Mando is a big deal, we'll try and get the word out a couple days before. We know what we're doing there. So why don't we switch over to the old Bad Batch? Sound good?
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
If you're having clone problems, I feel bad for you, son. I have 99 problems, but the Bad Batch ain't one.
This week we're covering Bad Batch episode 10, The Retrieval. Guys, did you have a chance to watch this week?
Oh, yeah. Twice.
It did.
Wild.
I did about
Super fun
half an hour ago.
Yeah.
What'd you guys think of this episode? Episode 10 episodes in at this point.
Yeah. Before I got that, I got a question. What does the title mean? Because when I saw the title, I thought the retrieval was the retrieval of the Bad Batch, right? Because we were promised in the last episode that Sid was sending out someone to get them.
Yeah. I thought we were. We should definitely get into that, and we should get into that right now, honestly, because I feel like that's not even in this episode, and it's like last episode, Sid promised reluctantly was like, "I'll help you. Yeah, I guess I'll help you guys get off world. I know you're stranded there. Their ship was stolen." And in this episode, no one comes. Sid didn't send anyone. No one from Sid's side came to save them. They had to save their own.
Don't you think it's funny? It's a story about a malicious, greedy, maybe has some sort of eating disorder person. He's a little on the heavy side. Who is exploiting their workers for their own profits. And I mean, Sid is not exactly smelling like a rose right now. So I'm curious if they take some of the lessons they learned on this unnamed planet, and then and look at Sid through a different lens.
Oh, super interesting. So in the summary, there's no Sid. Like Sid, there's don't make contact with Sid. No one. Sid didn't send anyone. It's kind of fun to see that the story took just a different direction, and sort of it was all about the Bad Batch sort of recovering their ship and getting off world themselves, which was very cool. And here's not a quick summary, but here's a pretty comprehensive summary of exactly what we watched. And we can even break out whenever you guys want to chat about certain moments. But in this episode 10, The Retrieval, Bad Batch remains stranded on a remote desert world as they try to locate their ship. Omega has the brilliant idea to track Gonki and hopes his signal will lead them to the ship's location, which was the ship itself was stolen by a young Ipsium miner and thief named Benny. Struggling to fly the unfamiliar ship, Benny takes the Marauder to an old Techno-Union mining site, now ruled by Mako, a greedy foreman who struts around with a retinue of armed security droids and tightly controls the supposedly limited food supply to ensure his workers remain both loyal and servile. Benny is hopeful he'll be rewarded for his find, but Mako laughs at his request for a standard water ration and gives him a few drops of his canteen, and allowing him to keep the power droid as well. While the ship gets stripped by Mako's followers, Gonki makes contact with Omega and relays the coordinates of the mine to the Bad Batch. The Batch infiltrate the mining colony and find Gonki and Benny in Benny's quarters. The Batch make Benny lead them to their ship, but the route to the lower levels is perilous, given they must rappel down an active exhaust port. Hunter, of course, leads the way and makes his descent down the stack. Their stealthy approach is nearly compromised by a patrolling security droid, but Hunter quickly dispatches the droid and the team make for the ship. While Hunter, Tech, and Wrecker work on repairing the hyperdrive, Omega and Benny go to the central tower to disable the ray shields above. Inside the tower, Benny and Omega make it to the control center where Omega starts her data link. While Omega relays the access codes to Tech, Benny secretly presses a button on a nearby console to alert Mako and his guards. While they wait, Benny and Omega have a heart-to-heart about Benny's struggles and poor living conditions. Omega informs Benny that the contrary to Mako says about the Ipsium they've been selling, it isn't degraded and there's no reason they should be starving. Just as Benny is beginning to see Omega's point, Mako bursts into the room and his droids apprehend Omega. Benny feels terrible for betraying Omega, given it was Mako who had been lying to him and the others all along. The Batch rush to rescue Omega and face off against Mako and his droids. Just as Mako seems to have the edge, Benny holds up Omega's device and exclaims to the rest of the workers that Mako has been keeping the profits to himself. At that moment, Mako orders his droids to drop Omega into the unstable Ipsium below, but the Bad Batch and the workers fight to save Omega and take down Mako once and for all. In the end, the Bad Batch recover their ship, and Benny and his fellow miners get to finally share in the profits they rightfully deserve. The end.
Nice.
That's
Well
what
done.
we watched.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So Grant, you texted earlier today, very thankful on my end, offering to do the summary. But I appreciate it. But when I was watching it, I ended up writing my own summary. Do you guys want to hear it?
Yes.
Okay. Oliver Twist in space.
Yes.
Please, sir, can I have some more?
It was very
Couldn't help.
Dickensian in terms of the orphan miners.
Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't help myself, but
No.
seriously, Grant, good job.
No, yeah, it was interesting. Benny we now have Benny. We now have a new Ben.
Benny Borrow, which is a pretty
Benny.
funny name for a thief. He wasn't borrowing it; he's stealing it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a thief. A thief.
Yes.
I guess he's called in the episode description or something.
Yeah.
They're like, they must trust a thief. And I was like, is he just a thief?
Yeah.
He's like this abused minor kid. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an orphan. It's a Dickens.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, technically, by his actions, he's a thief, but like,
Yeah.
by his
I'll produce him
upbringing,
to
he's like,
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
When you're hungry, you
Yeah.
start thinking about stealing stuff real quick.
Yeah, and when you're only told that the only way you're going to eat to survive is by stealing, then are you really a thief? Like, are you just,
Yeah.
like the rest of us? Yeah.
Just wage slaves.
I mean, like, which of us aren't actually stealing from people in the jobs that we do?
Not me.
Anyway,
Adam.
moving
never,
on.
Never.
I mean,
Nope, not me as a higher ed.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on. Continue talking.
I looked up Mako just to get this out of the way to see what species he was because he looked familiar,
Yeah.
but I just couldn't place it and wasn't able to find anything. Not determined at this juncture. But he is referred to as a slaver, which is kind of interesting, right? Because I thought he was a foreman.
I called him the greedy
Yeah.
foreman. I don't even know what his role was really. But I guess, I mean, yeah, those kids were treated pretty horribly. He like gave out one bowl of soup to like 10 kids.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the thing. Like now we're getting to definitionals, right? Like they are like not, they are not working for pay, like real pay, right? They're working for room and board, which is at its very best indentured servitude. But even indentured servants are earning a wage to pay off their indentured to, and that's not happening, right? Like literally, it seems like their only option is to work in order to survive, which is, I guess, at its core, the definition of slavery, right? Because there's no ability to accumulate wealth.
Yeah.
Sorry, as a sociologist.
Yeah.
Well, they seem to have like good quarters and they get like entire droids and things like that. Like it wasn't too bad. It's just a food situation. Like Mako was tightly controlling the food supply, and that was like
Yeah.
That was what I thought
mean,
was the biggest abuse and the biggest offense. It was like none of these people had food.
Yeah.
No, they didn't. To the point where we see Benny when he's stealing the ship, he sees like a ration bar on the
grabs
floor,
a
like a
ration
rat,
off the ground and like blows the
Yeah,
dust off
yeah.
it and then eats it. I was like,
which is super telling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like,
And that's the other thing is like, you know, talking about it is also like it's related to slavery in this term of like, yeah, their conditions were okay and they had a lot of other stuff, but like and really I think, you know, Omega asks Benny at some point, like, why don't you just leave? Right. And that doesn't seem like an idea to him. Right. And that is part of slavery, the history of a lot of different slavery, but in particular American slavery, this idea of like, the slaves had the numbers, right? But the mentality wasn't there because of
that kept them there. Yeah.
the system, right? And the brainwashing and the entirety and seeing it as just this is what life is. There's no other option, right? And so that leads me to my super depressing moment of just like, I love the ending of this show, where like just because of one data pad, they all rise up against Mako. That also seems not realistic to me. Unfortunately, like I was honestly waiting for Benny. Benny's story was believable because he had Omega, right, to kind of show him other options. I thought for sure Benny was going to show that data pad to I can't remember the other kid's name, but his rival Drake, and Drake was going to lie. I thought for sure Drake was going to look at that and say, "I don't know what you're talking about, Benny." Like, because that to me seems like the more realistic ending.
Is there a tier?
I always take care of my earners.
Right? Like,
wait, so that's what I wanted to get to, though, was the conditioning of these kids and how, like, he would, I guess, reward some of them for certain weeks and things like that and play favorites with and sort of rotate them and sort of keep up the optics that, you know, some are doing well at certain times and play with their spirits and sort of manipulates them in this in this really disturbing way that when he dies, I say take him out once and for all, but really when he dies at the end, Benny is like sad that Mako dies. He's basically like distraught that happened.
Yeah, no, it's true.
I mean, Mako almost like a connection to him because he had been rewarded in the past in some way. Even then with the canteen of water and the droid, like that was something, but it was awful. Obviously, it's nothing. It's just
he had to take in a lot of new information over the course of that thing. You know, pretty much the sun rose and set on Mako's shoulders for him in the beginning. It's all he had lived for, and then all of a sudden he realized, oh wait, no, he's just been cheating us and hoarding it and exploiting us.
It's
and
awful.
Yeah, he's been starving us to death for nothing.
For nothing. And I that idea of like playing favorites, and it's just it's I mean, it's Fagin, which is again from Oliver Twist. It's just brilliance, right? Because what you're doing is you're playing all of them off against each other so that they can't coordinate, right? Because you start seeing that some are better than others and more favored by Mako, and you can't trust each other because they're going to rat each other out. I mean, the fact that like Benny hits that button, right? That is amazing because at that moment he hits the button. You see him thinking about it. You see him thinking about the entire thing. Mako comes in and says, "Where are the others?" At that moment, you think maybe he's going to actually like support Omega. And he goes, "No, they're in the shuttle bay. I can't remember." But like, it still sells him out, right? Like, because it's just that ingrained. It is depressing. So I'm just like Mr. Depressing right now. How do we feel about the likelihood or how well these freed slaves are going to do? Kind of running this organization on themselves.
Great. It's going to be all high fives.
I think they're going to do great.
It's like
they might need some counseling
montage.
and therapy, but I don't know. That's
I'm a little worried they're just going to kind of rebuild Mako's thing with playing favorites against each other and having like best earners and stuff, and just like, you know, I don't know. We're really good with capitalism to kind of reinvent capitalism every time we think we deconstruct it, and we create another organization.
But I mean, at least like they can get to a fist fight over the hierarchy of power. Mako had that droid sort of bodyguards, you know,
That's true.
So
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I
right.
mean, and they mentioned food
Yeah.
like 29 times in the last 2 minutes of this. I mean, he's eating an apple, then he's eating another thing, and he gets food thrown at him.
Yeah.
And then he's like, it's time for grub. Like, then they eat
Yeah,
another
they said
meal.
it's chow
Yeah.
time. Let's chow down. And like,
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
I think they're gonna do
Yes.
fine.
it's gonna be awesome.
I have a.
I hope so.
It's gonna be
I hope so.
awesome with that
Yeah.
body count.
They're gonna do awesome. I love that, Grant. I have a question for you though.
I like
Is there another class
better than me.
below these guys? Like, are there actual just like full time miners? Or are they also miners as well as thieves and Mako's?
Super
Yeah.
unclear.
I didn't know because he was like, send them to the
Yeah.
mines for 10 years. That'll, if they live that long. And you always see people sort of going in and out of the mine for the Ipsium in like on that back Mortal Kombat catwalk that's like in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did show
Yeah.
that one time. I only got one
That's
look. At that.
that's a really good point, Ben. You're right, because these are the kids that go out and
Mm-hmm.
steal, right? And that's what they're rewarded for, is they're seen to have like the biggest earners, which to me seem the people that bring
Yeah.
back the best things. You're right. So we
Unless
have
you
no
can
idea
earn
what
by
the
mining
miners'
Ipsium.
lives are like.
And
That's true,
Yeah.
one way or the other.
and
Yeah,
there's groups
or
and
both.
it's all children and they rotate in and out. I mean, because I think in hindsight, it's like, I think maybe they all are also minors, but do whatever.
Maybe
Well,
that
Ipsium's
makes sense.
super valuable.
Yeah.
I feel like Mako wasn't sharing how much he was making.
No, not at all. Yeah, I think they'll be off. I think they'll be fine financially. Socially, I worry about them. But hey,
One
maybe
step
they're
at a
great.
time.
I think the good news is. Also, I think they're going to be fine because it's Star Wars. I think if it's the real world, I'd be a little more concerned. But I feel like Benny will.
Yeah.
We're going to see him again. Do we all think? And so we might get a little kind of, little catch up about how the rest of them are doing.
because that was he's like, if you ever need a thief, and it's like, well, yeah,
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
you're probably gonna need a thief there at some point. You're right, yeah. And so hopefully we'll get a little quick update on how it's going.
Boba Fett, Benny team up. Benny and the
Benny
Fett.
and the Fat.
Benny in the Fett. Wow. Can we just end? Can we end the podcast now? How do we go anywhere from there?
We did it. Yeah, I don't have much to say about this episode. It was. I thought it was fun. Again, the lighting. We talked
Yeah.
about the lighting
Yeah.
and the animation work is astounding.
How about that
Lighting,
landing?
music.
plan?
Hunter
Yeah.
Hunter rappelling down the stack,
Yeah.
exhaust stack was pretty sweet.
Yeah, I'm literally watching it right now. It's really good. I will say, won't go into too much details on the air. I've had a week and a half, and so I'm a little like very, very, very tired, and so I tend to get emotional when I'm very tired and I watch things, which is kind of my favorite thing, is to watch a movie when I'm insomniac, because I can actually feel my feelings. But Omega's leap of faith, I actively
Yeah.
got choked up that she saw Hunter and change what she was doing to immediately push herself off the catwalk to be lava, basically. And that's how much she trusts him. I literally was I was literally getting choked up in that moment of just it's amazing the family they formed so quickly that she just was yep, I'm safe. I can throw myself in the lava and I know
Save me.
Hunter has got
Or
me.
Grant, was there something
Yeah.
else going on there? Perhaps was she tapping into some sort of unseen energy field?
I didn't get that. Did you get that? I didn't get that at all.
I'm telling you, I'm looking out for you,
just
Grant.
thought
I
just
don't
thought
think it's going to
she
happen,
knows
but I'm
to
rooting
always-
for you.
I feel
Yeah.
like she knows she needs to create more time
Hey.
in any situation. She's like, how can I just at least hold on to the droid for a second, create a few more seconds of time so Hunter can get in position? Because the Bad Batch just takes a second to get in position, but once they're in position,
Yeah,
it's 100%,
Yeah.
a $1,000,000% success.
it's fun.
Yep.
I like
Yeah.
that a lot. And we know that Omega is also, we've seen young episodes in Clone Wars of young clones. They are not as adept and savvy as Omega is. She's special. And she's doing
She
some
is.
really amazing things. The intro sequence.
Yeah,
of
that
the
is
first
a
episode,
forced jump though, because
Yeah.
she goes super far.
I'm just telling you,
Mhm.
and timed
Yep.
it up just
Yep.
right, and knew
Yep.
she had to pull the droid, and then that was all going on in her head, algebra or whatever, floating over her mind. And I don't know. I'm just saying,
Really
it
good
looked
little
kind of
bot.
interesting there, Grant. If we were looking for evidence that
I
Omega's
wasn't
a
looking
Jedi,
for it per se. I was actually just blown away by Tech and Wrecker just one-shotting those droids in that brief instant. That
Yeah.
was my favorite moment of the
Oh,
episode.
man.
I was like, and those droids are done. Sorry, Mako.
Yeah.
Like,
The "we don't miss" line is really great.
Yes.
such a good line.
It
It's
was
like,
great.
oh, you
Yeah.
are the bad batch, aren't you?
Yeah. No, it's very true.
that line was
The catwalk
brilliant.
scene
Thank you for pulling that.
was really well done. Like it was well done. I appreciate again that the second they saw that Omega was in danger, there was no thought about putting the guns were
Yeah.
just down. The blasters were down immediately, right? And they're like, well, I guess we'll go work in the mines for 10 years now.
Yeah. That wasn't gonna
That
happen.
was
Yeah,
exactly-
it's like it's cute.
Yeah.
You thought that he's
Yeah.
like, I've got this whole situation under control, and it's like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
That reminds me of
sure.
my.
Was it? It was pretty touching when Omega was like, "The Marauders, our home.
Yeah.
It's our, we see it as our home. Or it's the only home we have." I was like, "It's amazing." That was.
That brought
got
my
me.
thing, but Ben, you were gonna jump
Oh,
in on what were you gonna say?
Well,
And
yeah,
I got something.
my other favorite, possibly my favorite line of that was, "You stole the wrong ship," which is
Yes,
was begging
yeah.
to be said, and it was like, oh boy,
Yeah.
yep, you don't want to steal that
Yeah.
ship at all.
I can't believe I waited this long to say this, but like justice for Gonki, not even justice, but like this is Gonki's ep,
Yeah,
right? Like
Yeah.
he was the linchpin of this whole thing. If it was for Gonki, they wouldn't have found
the
the
damsel in
ship.
distress, Gonki.
Yeah,
But
it's
yeah,
a whole big bear hug by Wrecker at the very
The
end.
was
useless
adorable.
power droid, as
Yeah.
Mako.
and it's like,
called
whoa,
Yeah.
whoa,
it. How
whoa,
dare you? I was like, "How dare you?"
Yeah,
and his gonking sort of gets to him after a while. He's like,
it's great. Yeah.
he's just like,
I feel like
gonk,
he recede
gonk.
into a dark corner and just gonk quietly at
Yeah.
one point.
Mhm.
Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, Gonki's awesome. It's like you're gonna have a droid, but it's just like,
Yeah.
nope, that's the one. That's our droid. We don't need like a.
Wait, how about that hangar where like they land on a shelf and the hangar like retracts into the I was like, what?
Yes.
It's thankfully the ship's not
So cool.
2 feet taller because it wouldn't have fit.
That
Like, it
always
was like-
happens.
Yeah, I was like,
That
wait,
always
and then
happens. Yeah.
yeah, that park job was also questionable.
Yeah, and they sat on that scene for the whole closing of the door,
They really did.
and
Yeah.
which is great. That's Star Wars to me. It's like, yeah,
that's-
I want to see that. That's what I'm here for. Like, the story is great, but like world building is better, and like this is amazing just to see the all that. Yeah, and you could file that under animation because it was just like, yeah, classic Star Wars scene, and a nice beauty shot, hero shot for the Havoc Marauder on its little turntable there. So that
Yeah.
was cool. Yeah, so I'd love to get to the end of this episode. We get, a couple of things. Firstly, watching the Bad Batch leave and the Havoc Marauder was like a very uplifting and fun scene. I enjoyed that. But then we have a little dialogue exchange here about the Empire is not the only threat. We've seen so many like Mako, and I think it was Tech who Omega was talking about this, and Tech said there are many more like us.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that was such a fun, beautiful
Yeah.
moment.
And so I don't know. I'm always searching for something deeper, like a storyline that's like carrying these things through a direction. But I mean, is he just vignetting here? Is this just like, is this a little microcosm of Star Wars, and there you go? Or is this
Yeah.
leading us somewhere?
I think he's just alluding to the other people who are resisting the Empire and resisting the corrupt and evil sort of
Yeah.
Right.
persons in the galaxy.
I mean, it could be a
Yeah.
little meta, right? Because those people are the disparate rebellion waiting to be formed, right? And then they just
Yeah.
get off a planet where they formed the rebellion to overtake, and they even say this is a microcosm of the Empire in this episode. So, yeah, I guess it's just a sort of hearken, like we're getting slowly towards the rebellion, but they're way away.
Yeah.
I mean, this is year one of the Empire still, I think. So,
Yeah, I read it similarly as like foreshadowing
Yeah.
that they're gonna start intersecting with some of these other proto rebellion type people or things. Because I mean the other question I have is like we've talked about Sid a little bit, and Ben, I loved your analogy there of that. I didn't even pick up on that, but the second you mentioned, like, oh yeah, it is exactly like what's going on with Sid. Like I can't imagine that we're gonna go into season 3 with the Bad Batch still
working for
hanging
Sid.
around and working for Sid, right? Like it can't be, right?
Yeah.
So I feel like we got to move these characters forward in some way. And this season seems to be them awakening to the fact that they have to do something more for the galaxy.
Yep. Yeah, I hope so. I mean,
Yeah.
they've been leaning on that, like every episode, sort of quoting it. So, yeah, I hope they go on a new adventure. It's like the Sid thing's fun, but it's just leading to these vignettes. I'm ready for the Smoking Man episodes of this, and let's push the plot forward a little bit. We've only got 6 episodes left, right? So
6, and I think I think the last 2 are on the debut on the same day, right?
Yeah.
So we only got 5 weeks left. Yeah.
right. But we're still gonna have some overlap with Mandalorian, so that's gonna be wild.
Sure
This is our
are.
first overlap in the
Those are gonna be some-
major.
Yeah.
So that'll be rad. Our cup
I
floweth
know,
over.
I know these last 2 episodes were relatively short. Expect a long one next week,
Yeah.
I would guess.
Yeah, I would write math.
Lots of Star
Yeah.
Wars coverage.
Awesome. Well, any other final thoughts, y'all?
Just thought it was funny how tech pronounces Navicomputer.
Navi
I
computer?
don't think I picked it. I don't think I caught it.
Navi.
So
Na- Navi
it was
computer.
amazing. I
Navi.
was astounded by it, and now it's the only way I can hear that word.
Yeah, there was a couple of lines in there. That was one that harkens back to something. And then Records like, this is a waste of time. Like he does like the Luke Skywalker like line delivery, which is kind of funny.
Records secretly is
That would be
Luke
great.
Skywalker from A New Hope.
That would be great.
So
Yeah,
true.
but
That's
another
funny.
really fun ride here. I can't wait to just go back through when this is done and watch them all and just like soak it all in because it's a fun ride. The crew's great. So, all right. Well, I guess we'll wait till next week and we will cover not only the next episode 11 of The Bad Batch, but episode, oh gosh, I guess it must be episode 17 of The Mandalorian, right? 8 and 8.
Right? Yeah.
Cool. So we'll be
Yeah.
doing that next week. Thanks very much for hanging out with us this week. And until then, may the Force be with you.
This is Grex Kondak signing off for the news on Twitter and Instagram. Thank you and good night.
Remember, the Force will be with you always.